1AR. The first is a question of mestizaje, which coheres Mexican identity at the expense of people who are subordinated to that very form of identity, i.e. those Zapotec and Maya people who have their own subjectivities that are not located within the Mexican state. This plays into the hands of Mexican settler narratives that work to assimilate people within that settler state. This is conceded in the 1AR. No extrapolation on the question. Second is the issue of Aslan itself. Even if it's not just a geographical region, it's a bad epistemology and a bad way to unite oppressed peoples because it works to conduct violence against other indigenous peoples who do not identify with that narrative of Aslan. The Saldana Portillo evidence is the most specific piece of evidence in this round on the question of Aslan identity because it shows how it works to erase people like the Pueblo, the Dina, and the Apache who occupy positions on the borderlands but do not identify with that Aztec history that they cohere around. This means that they cannot. This means that they overwrite those other indigenous peoples and present themselves as the authentic indigenous people that must be affirmed. This necessarily creates a form of cacophony, which the bird evidence says only saying that indigeneity, the people who have the relationship to a particular piece of land, should be prioritized in this debate. The final link argument I will go for is a question of place, not of time. They do not meet their own method of rejecting the form of linear history that their evidence criticizes. Their particular discussion of history is the form of temporal thinking that legitimates narratives of progress that says that native peoples are located in the past, that their histories and subjectivities have been erased, and that they do not exist in status quo for settler formations. This allows settlers to sidestep responsibility by saying, "Oh no, we do not support Columbus, and we don't believe in the Mexican-American War. Therefore, we do not perpetuate forms of settlerism." This is exactly what they do because they disavow those other indigenous identities that they recreate. The alternative is a forefront indigeneity, which is pretty similar to the 1AC. The difference is that we forefront place, i.e. the particular space in which we find ourselves. This allows us to create ethical communities that can confront the multiple forms of oppression located in settler formations created by forms of multiculturalism. They say that Aslan is not a geographic location but an epistemic frame. You should hold them to the CX of the 1AC where they indicate that it is both simultaneously a geographic region as well as an epistemic frame. This is a fictional one created by the settler state to construct its own violence. They say we can see the Zin evidence, but first of all, the bird evidence is better than the Zin evidence because the bird can confront the multiple histories of oppression that are created within settler society, which only forefronting indigeneity allows us to resolve. Additionally, I think the Zin is another reason why they link to their linear thinking time, because this is exactly the form of white history that they criticize. Even if it then works outside the boundaries of what constitutes good history, that doesn't mean they are not the form of linear history that they criticize. They say Oklahoma can join in their coalition against, they can join in their coalition, but their coalition is bad because it erases the people who live within this space who do not identify with the borderlands that they describe. They say they're a prerequisite to any decolonization, but this is not warranted in the 1AR. They say extend the permutation, but I have no idea what the permutation would exactly do and how we would avoid any of the links that indicate that they erase other indigenous subjectivities, which means that there is no net benefit to the perm and no reason it should be prioritized in the first place. They've also conceded the piece of evidence that I read, which is the Tuckneying evidence, which indicates that they are a form of appropriation which always integrates competing native histories into that larger politic of settlerism that allows colonial violences to perpetuate themselves. This means that they are part and parcel of the very logic they criticize. All of our links are dissets to the permutation, which are reasons they should be rejected. They finally have conceived the negation theory framing, which says that if we went in dissent to their particular methodology, they should be able to go back and rewrite the 1AC to make it more inclusive and not based around the oppression of other indigenous peoples. 1AC, case page. They indicate that they rupture a form of white history, not just of Columbus, but of Pope, but they conceded the preaching the choir argument that Austin made in the 1NR that says that everyone within this space realizes that people like Columbus is bad and that the Catholic Church has a history of colonial violence. This means that they do not provide a unique form of education, and it's a reason why you should prefer the education that the 1NC provides, because we have educated them on the particularities of the way that Ontodua's borderlands theory works to erase other forms of positionality. This means that we do not link to their double consciousness identity because we do not force them to identify with the state. We do not identify with the state either. And nothing about this offense is particular to the alternative, which means that is a standard that should be evaluated. They say that we perpetuate psychological violence within the debate round, but the alternative is not the form of standard negation that they are indicting within the 1AC. We are not a form of policy debate that they think is bad. We do not force them to forget their identities. Rather, their identities and history should not foreclose other alternative histories and methodologies, i.e. those particular peoples that I've already explained all throughout the 1AC. This is indicated by all of our Hewitt and Sidley evidence that says whenever they appeal to their personal narratives, this necessarily becomes a new hegemonic form of narrative that forecloses alternative perspectives, which means that they are ultimately the form of temporal thinking that we are criticizing. They say no change happens in the world of the all. This is a pedagogical debate about which sort of knowledge should be preferred. If their knowledge perpetuates violence, they should be rejected.
Number 5. You're the left hand, so I know.
The pranks were around 2 hours.
I don't think it's on tap run.
248, right? We had 248 left.
Yeah.
You had 240. You're at a little over a minute.
They're on down room, it's just only the first round that's up right now.
Okay. Wonder why we aren't getting text of that first. We're not gonna get text.
It might have been put up. I won't really know anyway because I haven't been part of it. Oh, by the way, the person that would hammer out. I limited count to this. And then those other two. Do you agree with that?
Go ahead, Gene.
I mean, I prefer to have these instead of that one. I was waiting with that, but. I'm talking about that after this.
Okay.
If we hold debaters to a higher standard and focus not just on policy but our discourse and how to implicate policy, we can produce a more pedagogically efficient debate community. This means that the negative must be held responsible for the possibility of their discourse reproducing America-wide linear notions of history or psychological violence. Viewing our politics from the perspective of performativity allows us to be more vigilant in how our discourse affects our own political agency as opposed to others. Debaters make a conscious choice of what their priorities are and should be held accountable for what they read. They have re-entrenched psychological violence in this round, which is everything we've been talking about with it, which is the question of history versus space. This is going to be the locus of the 2AR. It is a question of decolonizing the mind before having the tools and to actually mobilize to have any material decolonization. They say we need to not use the method of history, but they ignore the whole construction of the way they see. It is a question of the over-determination of representation that creates self-loathing, that creates self-racism, that creates psychological violence. Our method of fracturing these dominant paradigms means we are able to embrace our culture, our identity, our language, our ways. We are able to find meaning in life. We are able to have subjectivity. We are able to stop social death. This is something that the oppressed can rally behind, and this is the way we frame Aslan. As we stated, Aslan is symbolic. It is a place free from the overdetermination of representations that are presented by the status quo. A place that the oppressed can use their double consciousness as a mobilizing factor to have the tools to decolonize, to stop seeing the state as a benign good. This means that our role of ballot of liberation is going to be the best question here, because we say through the fractional these notions of dominant paradigms, we are able to access this. The only argument they have coming out of here is talking about how everybody knows about Columbus and stuff like that, but it is a question of our method. It is a question of fracturing dominant history. It is a question of the history we are taught. The sin is real good on this question. Is talking about how history has this distortion, this ideological choice of ignoring certain aspects of history in order to re-entrench itself. We say we need to fraction those. The only argument else they have here is talking about that we are linear history. We are fracturing of that linear history. And need to, even if you believe that that is the status quo, meaning fracturing our dominant points in history can be the better method to actually solve for the history that creates oppression. You need to explain to me in the end of around how somehow our methods of linear history causes some form of oppression when we're using that decolonization in order to solve for our double consciousness. And another reason why they create double consciousness in this round is their first priority argument. This was not actual. Well, it is a question of when you do prioritize genocide and oppression, then it leads to hierarchies, which is the dominant paradigm that we are trying to fracture. Well, when you do this prioritization, it only reinscribes the narrative that others are less important, that others need to be in the forefront, and it checks people's identities at the door. It only creates more double consciousness, self-loathing, and racism, internal racism, and on the criticism. We have a couple of arguments here. First is the sovereignty deficit. Extend the analysis above. You being a decolonial scholar means without our prerequisite argument of fracturing or whitening your history, then they're materialistic. Their alternative, when it does materialize, it means people are not able to mobilize. People in the status quo are socially dead, meaning the alternative cannot solve. This is why embracing our fracturing as a prior question to material decolonization, and this is why Oliver is key on this question. Colonization is not just about the spaces that they are talking about, but internally, and their alternative does nothing to resolve those issues, especially when they say we need to not worry about history. We say history must be the prior question. And two, the Levine card says that prioritizing genocides and oppression by saying indigeneity must be at the forefront creates hierarchies that puts the oppressed at the back burner. This is a diss to the criticism, and this is why the perm is going to solve, as we stated, is perm do both. We can fracture wide linear notions of history. They have a discussion, and we have a couple of analyses here. They say that having a discussion is, they say that we need to have a discussion space, not history. We say we can do both. A question of history must happen. A question of history is the way we shape present today, meaning we need to fracture history in order to actually learn about the oppression we have now, which means people are able to self-mobilize and have any form of agency. This is why only focusing on the present is only part of the equation, but the term of fraction history and understanding present oppression means that is the best formula for a decolonization scholar. And two, the perm also resolves the Levine evidence, which is the dissent to the perm, which says that we need to have multiple starting points and not have this question of hierarchies and putting people at the forefront. This is going to be the best method to have any type of liberation, but also for decolonization. And a little more analysis on this mestizaje argument that they went for. As we stated, they say that mestizaje somehow creates the social death of the others, but let's make it clear, when we say mestizaje, one, that is an embracement of our own identity. I'm not too entirely sure how that oppresses other people or somehow makes them socially dead. And two, if they are socially dead in the status quo, then fracturing, widening your notions, fracturing dominant paradigms that says that their culture, their ways, their history, and everything about them is put at the back burner, then that means that our method is going to be the best way to actually solve for that social death. And And 3, Aslan, this is 2 quotes coming out of the 2NR is talking about not located in the Mexican state. And 2, people don't identify with the narrative of Aslan. We say, as we stated, Aslan is the epistemic place of overdetermination representations. Our advocacy is talking about fracturing dominant histories, meaning that Aslan is not just a material place, but it is a question of how people of oppressed who have been overdetermined can actually strive to solve for that double consciousness.
Debate.
We got time to go outside.
Yeah.
Do you need anything from us?